Hello students, welcome to Answer Writing program. Today we are going to discuss 3 questions taken from GS1 Modern History section. So the topics for the discussion are important workers movement and organization, important personalities, governor generals and viceroys, and tribal movement in the later stage. Let's have an overview of the questions. The first question is related to the Lord Curzon's policy with respect to the India. The second question is related to the role of the tribal leaders from southern and central India to fight against the British Raj. The third question is related to the role of Dadabhai Naoroji. So let's start with the first question. The first question is saying Lord Curzon's egregious policies have transcended time and haunted the present. Comment. So we have to comment related to the following statement. Let's try to understand the demand of the question. The question is saying the policies which was introduced by the Lord Curzon may have passed the time, but it's still causing problem and it's still haunting the India present day. So here we have to divide our question into the 2 parts in the body. So in the first part of the body we are going to discuss about the policies of the Curzon, and in the second part of the body we are going to write down how these policies are still haunting the India. So these are the demand of the question which we are going to discuss in our body. Let's try to understand how we are going to write down the introduction. In the introduction, we can briefly talk about the Lord Curzon. What kind of personality he was or what kind of policy he introduced in India. In briefly, we will be discussing it about. So if we consider Lord Curzon, he was a British conservative statesman and he served as a Viceroy of India during the 1899 to 1905. So if we consider his several policies with respect to India and surrounding, we can find a lot of issues with those policies. So for example, if we see the partition of the Bengal, or if we see his role into the northwest frontier province, these other aspects also if we consider are controversial with respect to the Lord Curzon, and we can still find out those particular policies still haunt India in present day. So this is the introduction. Now let us discuss about the body. In the first part of the body, we are going to write down about the policies of the Lord Curzon. So what are the different policies he implemented? The first one is creation of the Northwest Frontier Province in 1901. So this particular area was part of Punjab, and because of some or other issue like tribal revolts or issue related with the tribal uprising there, he tried to create a separate province as the Northwest Frontier Province, and that is why if we see this is the historical significance, this particular area is having historical significance also, because later on after India-Pakistan divide, this particular area came under the territory of the Pakistan. The second important policy related issue which he has taken into was the invasion of the Tibet. So the invasion related to Tibet, they tried to do it in 1888 also, but during the time of the Curzon, they wanted to create an influence, colonial influence to the surrounding area of India also. That is why this invasion of Tibet was launched, and that particular issue, the Tibet related issue, is still prevalent between the India and China. The other important policy related issue he has taken out related to the Calcutta Municipal Amendment Act in the year of 1899. So to curb the civil liberties, to curtail the civil liberties, he passed out this act where he reduced the representation in the Calcutta Corporation. The other important step taken by the Lord Curzon was Indian Universities Act. So to control and curb the education related activities of the India, he passed out this particular act, and this particular university, Calcutta University, came under government control. The other important policy initiative he has taken was the Indian Official Secret Amendment Act of 1905. So to curb the freedom of press, he passed out this act, and this restriction on the freedom of press was passed due to the several reasons of India, because the nationalist movement was taking momentum and he wanted to curb the speak of the people. He wanted to curb the freedom of the speech of the people and the nationalists so that the movement can be curtailed. The next one is partition of the Bengal. So if we consider the nationalist movement during this particular time of Karjan, the Indian nationalist movement was getting momentum. So the nationalist ideas was getting spread during that time, and the masses were also getting aware about these things. That is why too, and Bengal was a nerve center of the nationalist ideas, the awakening. That is why he tried to separate the Bengal based on the religion. So there was two Bengal created by him, the East Bengal and the West Bengal. So the East Bengal, presently we know it as the Bangladesh, was created as the majority of the Muslim people was living there, while the Western Bengal was having the majority of the Hindu. So based on the religion, he tried to create two separate territory, and that later on created the communal tension, and it was the beginning of the communal politics in India. So these are some of the policies related to India and surrounding the Lord Curzon has taken. Now let us try to deal with the second part of the question, which is how these particular policies impacted India in the present day also. So after has been passing out a lot of time, still we are facing issues because of the Curzon's policy. For example, communalism, as we have seen and discussed, that partition of the Bengal was based on the communal line, Hindu and Muslim. So he wanted to divide the people, and we can see this was the introduction of the communalism in mainstream politics and historical tensions between the Hindu and Muslim influencing the contemporary dynamics also. So we can see present day also, we can find out the communal issues in Indian politics and Indian people, and it was seeded by the Curzon's policy. The other important point is Tibet issue. So if we see, to curtail or to have the impact of the British colonial rule, he did this invasion of the Tibet, but later on this particular issue created problem between India and China. So presently also India is facing issue related to the Tibet with China, and ongoing complexities in India's relation with China we can see. So this is also seeded by the policies of Curzon. The other important point is partition of the Indian territory. If we see the Northwest Frontier Province, or if we see the Tibet related policy, or if we see the partition of the Bengal, because of all these, the Indian territories and boundary got disturbed. And that is why after the independence also, if we see, the Northwest Frontier Province was come into the part of Pakistan, and the shaping of the geopolitical relations, geopolitics situation got complex due to this boundary. So this partition of the territories during the Curzon's time and later on created the complexity for Indian geopolitics. So that's again an important aspect we have to keep in mind. The other important point is related to education and freedom of speech. So whatever curbs he tried to impose on the education and freedom of speech, later on it got continued by the other viceroys also, other leaders also, and that is why we can see significance present of the curbing of the education and the freedom of speech we can find out in the present day politics also. So these are the impact of the Curzon's policy on present day India. Now let us try to understand some of the positive outcome of the Curzon's policy for present India. So whatever policies he tried out or he implemented was for serving the colonial interest, but some of the outcomes which eventually, not intentionally but unintentionally came out, and what we can learn from this we are going to discuss here. So the foreign policy lessons from Lord Curzon we can understood. For example, if we see the Northwest Frontier Province, there if we see, the Curzon applied the policy of withdrawal and concentration, where because of the tribal movement, the conflict of the tribals, he tried to withdraw his army from that, and that is where the expenditure got reduced, and also the expenditure on the military and administration also get reduced, and that is why the advanced posts were then replaced by the tribals of that reason only. So we can learn that from that experience, that how to stay withdrawal from those areas which are coming under conflicts continuously. And the other important point is security beyond the shore. So he ensured how he can secure the territory around the India. So we can learn that, and also maintaining friendly relation with neighbors. So we learned a lesson that it's very important for India to maintain the friendly relation with its neighbor, whether it is Pakistan or China or some other country. It's very important to maintain it specifically with those countries where we are having immediate boundaries such as Pakistan and Bangladesh, and offering strategic alternative. As we have seen that to counter the China's influence, we have to promote the different kind of tactics. For example, we have to balance the geopolitical environment. We have to create a multipolar world. So because of those challenges which we have faced due to the policies of Curzon, we came out with some of the innovative innovative solutions. Other important aspect which we can learn it from the policies is Cooperative Credit Society Act of 1904. So if we see, this particular act was launched for reforms into the agriculture sector. For example, development of agriculture and focusing on empowering the farmers so that they can come out from the trap of the money lender. So these are some of the positive aspects which we have discussed related to the Curzon's policy in the present day scenario. Now let us discuss about the conclusion. Here we can write down the impact of the Curzon's policy on India in the long run. So we can talk about the policies of the Curzon was a mix of both. So for example, if we see, the Curzon's tenure was a mix of both the policies which incited the communalism and curtailed the freedom of the press and the people. Along with this, unintentionally, it fueled a nationalist movement. So whenever he tried to do the partition of the Bengal, or he tried to curb the freedom of the movement, freedom of the press, the nationalist forces, the masses got awakened because of the policies of the British. They got into the Swadeshi movement and different kind of movement to protest against the partition of the Bengal. So this was unintentionally we got as a result. Also, some of the policies offer valuable lesson for modern India's foreign policy. So how we need to deal with the China, Pakistan or Bangladesh, we got learned from the Curzon's policy how to maintain our border. We got an idea about that also. So that is the impact of the Curzon's policy in India for a long run we can give in our conclusion. Now let us go through the model answer. In the introduction part, we have given about the Curzon, his tenure as a viceroy, and then we have discussed about the policies of the Curzons, and then we have discussed how these policies impact the present day India. And then in the conclusion, we have written about in long run how it is going to shape the foreign policy of the India. Now let us discuss the second question, which is saying many tribal leaders in the southern and central India fought bravely against the British Raj. Substantiate with the suitable example. So let's try to understand the demand of the question. Here we have to write down the name of the important tribal leaders, important tribal uprising of the southern India and central India, the important leaders' name, and we have to give example related to this. That is the demand of the question. So we are going to divide the body into the two segments. In first one, we are going to write down about the tribal uprising of the central India and the important leader associated with it. And the second one, we are going to deal with the southern India's tribal uprising. So that is the demand of the question. Now let us discuss about the introduction. Here in introduction, we can provide the historical context. Okay, why the tribal uprising happened in India, what was the reason behind it, and how we can see the spread of these tribal uprising across the India. So if we see, tribal resided in jungles or forests of India for centuries, and when the advent of Britisher or European came and that advent started in India, they continued to do the expansion in the forest because of the commercial purposes. For example, when they introduced railway, they wanted to use the forest for making timber. And also if we see, for plantation work also, they were trying to expand the area. So because of the commercial purposes, they were exploiting the resources of the forest. That is why they come into the conflict with the tribal people. Why? Because these tribal consider these forests as the sacred. These were the homeland of these tribal for the centuries, and also they were dependent on these forests. Also by British, new people, foreign people were introduced in these forest area, and because of those, the money lending tendencies got increased into these tribal area. So because of all these cumulative causes, the tribal uprising happened into the different area of India, being it the northeast area, or if we consider the central India or the southern India, all the areas have seen the tribal uprising in India. So these caused and also the different kind of laws introduced by foreigners, British, also created the problem for them, and that is why they consider the foreign government encroachment into their territory. So that is the introduction which we can give. Now let us discuss the body part. In the first part of the body, we are going to write down about the Central India's tribal leaders and important uprising against the British. So the first one would be Chuar uprising, and it happened during the different time frame. So these were basically because of the demands and the economic privatization by the British, and it took place into the Midnapur district and Bankura district of Bengal. So these were the main areas where it happened, but it had a wide support system. So for example, if we consider the Raipur area, the Jamindar of the Raipur were also present in this particular uprising. So the different kind of geographical reasons got involved in it. So for example, Jagannath Singh, or if we consider Sham Ganjan of Dhaka, and also Durjan Singh of the Raipur, these were the prominent leader associated with it. The other important one is Coal Mutiny. So the Budo Bhagat was the leader of the revolt, and it happened because they consider the encroachment or expansion of the British rule into the coal territory, and the important area were Ranchi, Singhbhum, Hazaribagh associated with it, influenced by the Coal Mutiny. The other one is Ho and Munda uprising, which happened during the different time frame. So if we consider the 1827 revolt, it was led by the Raja Parahat against the occupation in the Singhbhum region by the British, and then later on if we see the Mundas and the Ho got consolidated, they fought together against the British rule, and later on if we consider the Mundas, they under the leadership of Birsa Munda fought against the British. The other important is Santhal rebellion. So it was led by the Sidhu and Kanu, and they covered the region of the Bihar. So the main area which got influenced by this particular uprising was the Bihar region, and they were initially uprising was against the money lenders, but later on it converted against the anti-British, as they were supporting the money lenders, and they considered that these money lenders and zamindar are having support of the Britishers. Now let us discuss the second part of the body, the important tribal leaders and important uprising of southern India against the British. So here we are going to write down about the Khond uprising. So these Khonds were the people who were residing into the areas of hilly regions of the Andhra Pradesh, and they were extended in the areas of Bengal and Orissa. So under the leadership of the Chakra Vishnoi, these particular uprising happened because they were opposing the interference of the British into the tribal customs. The other important one is Koya revolt, and the different Koya leaders, for example, Sara chiefs such as Toma Sara and the Raja Anantyar, they all involved into the rising against the British, and the reason where it got prominence was the Andhra Pradesh region. The other important one is Bhil revolt. So these Bhil were the people who were living into the Western Ghat, and they were controlling the north and the southern India. So these were having the control over the passes which were connecting the north and south India, and they revolted against the British because they were facing famine, economic distress due to the misgovernance. So if we consider such as Govind Guru and the other Bhil such as Banswara's Bhil, they organized to fight against the British and to consolidate as the Bhil Raj by 1913 also. The other important one is Rampa revolt, and this happened under the leadership of Alluri Sitaram Raju of Koyas, and the important area which was influenced by it was the Andhra Pradesh. So these are the prominent uprising into the central and the south India which we have discussed. Now come to the conclusion. Here we are going to discuss about the impact of these revolt, like if they fail or succeed. So if we consider the different kind of uprising happened into the different areas of the India, these tribal uprising suppressed by the British brutally, because these people were not having latest weapon, or the technique through which they fought were very old. So if we consider the tribal revolts, these were led by the Masiha like figures. For example, if we consider the Birsa Munda, so these people encouraged their people, these tribal people got consolidated, they fought against the British, but ultimately these were doomed from the beginning given the outdated arms, and they knew that the methods which has been applied by them were very old. So they were lacking in modern weapon technologies and techniques used by the opponents. Thus the British suppressed them very brutally. But because of this, the positive outcome came after the tribal revolt is they understood the intention of the British, which was not in their favor. The British were trying to oppress the people, and they were always interested into the economic drain of the forest, economic exploitation of the forest, and that is why they were denying the people their rights there. So this is the conclusion which we have discussed. Now let us go through the model answer. In the introduction, we are going to write down about the causes or the reason of the important tribal risings, and then we are going to discuss about the major central India's tribal leaders and the southern India's tribal leaders against the British. And in the conclusion, we are going to write down about the impact. So that is the model answer for the second question. Now let us discuss the third question, which is saying there has been a plenty of economic critique of British Empire in India, but the work of Dadabhai Naoroji is invaluable. In the light of this statement, elaborate on the contribution of the Dadabhai Naoroji. Let's try to understand the demand of the question. Here the term is elaborate. So we have to elaborate the given statement. What the statement is saying, we have to put out the different kind of role and contribution being produced and the work produced by the Dadabhai Naoroji as the economic critic. So they are saying there has been a lot of economic critic of British Empire, but the kind of work which has been done by the Dadabhai Naoroji is invaluable. So we have to talk about the Dadabhai Naoroji's role as an economic critic of the British Empire, and we have to put out the fact example related to the fact. That's the demand of the question. So let us discuss the introduction. In the introduction of this particular question, we can write down the role of the Dadabhai Naoroji, the kind of person he was, and we can write down all these things in brief. Okay, so for example, if we consider Dadabhai Naoroji, he is having a different kind of roles and responsibility with respect to the freedom movement. So we can write down Dadabhai Naoroji was a Parsi social reformer, freedom fighter, a nationalist, but most importantly, he was an economic critic of British imperialism. If we consider his different works such as The Voice of India, the newspaper which has been published by him, or if we see his books such as Poverty and Un-British Rule in India, he put out the fact of the kind of nature of the British Empire we are having. So if we consider this book, he put out the theory of the drain of wealth theory. In particular, this theory, he put out how the British is exploiting the economic resources of India and how this drain of Indian wealth is happening. And this was a very important study or the theory by which the Indian got aware about the role or the kind of nature the British rule is having. So that was the most important role of his with respect to the economic critic. And he also put out that the colonial rule which was robbing India's richness and prosperity and causing it the starvation and the poverty. His finding has profound impact on the laying foundation of the nationalist movement, because later on the different kind of nationalist put out his studies, he understood his studies, and based on this he developed an opinion, and later on for an upcoming year, this particular role of the Dadabhai Naoroji as an economic critic helped out for the other nationalist also and for the other economic critic also. So this is the introduction which we have discussed. Now come to the body. Here in the body, we are going to deal with the one and only demand of the question, which is the contribution of the Dadabhai Naoroji. For example, his findings were the data driven. So whatever findings or study he had produced, it was based on the data. That is why the British could not deny the facts. For example, if we see, he documented how the Indian exchequer was starved through the excessively high interest rate of loan, and especially for the railway construction. So he put out the high interest loan rate, which was again a data-driven fact. The other important point is British imperial glory at the cost of India. So if we consider a different kind of expedition or invasion or different kind of military expenses were coming from the British, was actually coming out from the Indian revenue or Indian money. So that is why he said that this is a kind of exploitation of the Indian resources. This is again an important finding by the Dadabhai Naoroji. If we consider the other work, he put out how deliberately British were trying to weakening the Indian rupee. So that is where the Indian rupee was getting weakened up and it lost its value by 1/5 with respect to the British pound. So that is again a significant factor which he put out into the perspective. The other important point is how he put out the studies and the information related to the starving Indias of capital. How? Because he put out that Indian money was getting used for the other purposes also. For example, the railway projects were being funded by the resources of India, and he also put out that how Indian laborer were coming out from the agriculture sectors for doing the work for the railways, and that is where the agriculture is losing its productivity. So the reducing local agriculture productivity was the cause because of the faulty policy of the British. The other important aspect is drain of wealth theory, which we have discussed, which he has given in his book. So basically, if we consider the different kind of railway loan, or if we consider the employment of the large European staff in India, or if we consider the transfer of Indian resources for export, all these factors were causing the drain of the wealth. For example, if the British were getting any kind of revenue from one particular area, let us suppose from one particular province, what they were doing, based on the revenue generated from this area, they were buying the goods from the local people, and these particular goods were later on were sold into the British market. So basically, these particular activities of the British were causing the loss of the revenue for the India, because Indian revenue were finally used for the purchasing of the goods in India, and it was sold into the British market. And also, if we consider the different kind of tariffs which were imposed onto the Indian goods for exporting, and the cheap rate of importing from the British market, again drained the wealth of India. The other important one is modern statistical method. So he employed the modern technique of doing the calculation and statistics, which again provided us a tool to critically examine the economic policy of the British. The other important point which he put out into the perspective was man-induced famine. So the policy of the British continuously caused famine and starvation in the different kind of areas of India, and this frequency of the masses was due to the policies of the British, which was again a cause of the problem in India. So he put out all these perspective into the domain of the public, and later on the different kind of nationalists used this data. Now let us discuss the conclusion. Here in the conclusion, we are going to write down the impact of Dadabhai Naoroji's contribution in the Indian freedom struggle. So if we consider the Dadabhai Naoroji, the different theories such as drain theory and the study on the Indian poverty has shown the real nature of the British imperialism in India. So it inspired the nationalists of that time, who got to know about the real nature of the British rule, that the different kind of exploitative policies they are having related to the misgovernance, which actually contributed for the freedom struggle in India. Also, if we see the different kind of work of Dadabhai Naoroji, it inspired the different kind of economists of that time and the further generation also. So this particular work of Dadabhai Naoroji got supplemented and followed by the other economists also. For example, if we see M.G. Ranade, G.V. Joshi and R.C. Datta. So these particular studies related to the economy of the British got inspired the different generation of the economists and also contributed for the India's freedom struggle. So that is the conclusion for this particular question. Let's go through the model answer. Here in the introduction, we have discussed about the Dadabhai Naoroji, and then we have written down the contribution under the different heads such as the data-driven finding. Then we have discussed about drain of wealth, etc. And in conclusion, we have written down the impact of these policies onto the nationalist and different generation of the economists in the later stage. So that was the discussion for today. Thank you very much. Have a great day.